Good evening. My name is Thurman Greco, and the name of this program is Let's Live with Thurman Greco, and it's coming to you from Channel 23, Woodstock Educational Television in Woodstock, New York, and from YouTube, Let's Live with Thurman Greco. And I'm very, very excited. This is a holiday show, and I asked around and I was asking people who do we want back? And there was no competition. It was Susan, Fiona, Saxman. And Susan is here, and she's got a lot of wonderful news. So start off with the gossip, Susan.
Oh, the gossip about the world and the new year?
Start off with the good stuff, the juicy stuff.
The juicy stuff. Okay. About
the oracle cards.
Well, I've been doing what I do, which I'm clairvoyant, in case you didn't know, but everybody knows. People know too much because of my book. Everyone knows everything about me, which is kind of weird, but it's okay.
It's okay.
It's all right. Anyway, we've decided, my friend Jeffrey and I, Jeffrey Fulminari, who's an artist, and we've decided that enough is enough. It's time for me to have my own set of oracle cards.
Great.
Yeah. So they're going to be a little quirky and a little odd, like me, and he's going to do the art because he's a world-renowned artist. So we're just going to do it, and the oracle cards are going to be a combination of mythology, legend, and of course, pop stars, rock stars, British ones at that, because that's how I was raised and all that. That's my passion.
Now, who is the artist again?
Jeffrey Fulminari is an artist that's also like my best friend, and he lives in Woodstock, but he also did the illustration for Madonna's book, The English Rose, and he was a fashion designer and worked mainly in Japan, and he's very popular. Some people know him here. He did t-shirt. Actually, he did the shirt I'm wearing, but you can't really see it very much here. But he did. And he used to be a model for Calvin Klein back in the day, but now he's just really cool.
So this is a Woodstock.
He's
production.
A Woodstock guy, yeah, and we're Woodstock people, and he's really awesome, and we're going to do this together.
Whose idea was it to do this?
We just kind of got it together, and we've been good friends for like 6 years, and we were like, why don't we do our own cards? And it seemed like the thing to do.
And I think it's wonderful.
And it seems very timely right now because there's still talk of a TV show very strongly about.
Yeah, but TV shows take for years.
It's already taken forever.
By the time the TV show comes around, you'll have your cards. They'll be published. They'll be selling around the world.
So we're going to do the cards first, and we're thinking like it could have been tarot cards, but we're thinking more of the oracle cards because they're bigger and they show art more. And oracle cards can be less structured. Well, yeah, and the oracle cards are pretty much like 38 in a deck or 32, where the tarot would be like between 78 and 82. So we want to keep it more, a little bit more artistic and festive and interesting.
Now, the oracle cards, will they have a front and a back, or that is informational, or will they have one side?
One
and then
side,
the
pretty
cover?
much, but we want to make them really artistic and pretty.
And people will draw a card.
Yeah.
And what will happen?
Well, I'll write a book that goes with them about what the card means or what the information would be, and we'll. I find anything to do with the cards in general. It means different for other people. I don't go by the book meaning of anything. I never have. So what a card means for one person, it could mean something different for another.
Absolutely.
So you have to interpret it for yourself. And you know this because you do readings with
You do pictures.
Yeah.
You do what pictures. You see. Everybody sees different things.
And it's mostly what you feel also.
Right.
So how it makes you feel. And it like all art is, it's interpretive. So, and by the way, Jeffrey's going to have some art put in the Louvre.
That's wonderful.
So this is really a huge thing.
This is great.
Yeah, so we're we're doing some big things. So that's the gossip.
You
mostly.
are coming in with
We're
very
coming
juicy
in with-
gossip.
It's juicy. We're doing big things. We're trying to, bring a whole nother thing of art to Woodstock in general.
I'm so excited. And I'm very excited that you are going to be writing all of those things.
I'm writing all of
because
it.
this book was only a start.
I know, and this was just such a small amount of anything, and it's too edited as far as I'm concerned. There's so much juicy stuff that should have been in, but we didn't. So I'm going to add it to something else.
Well, that's because
It's
you're
good.
writing for your second volume now.
Yes, and there's so
but
many more stories.
Before your second volume, you're going to have your oracle cards.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
which
yeah.
are very, very exciting.
Yeah.
And
there's
do
a
you know
lot
what kind of
stuff.
colors does Jeffrey use?
Purple, blues, anything
Wow.
that's kind of bright and vibrant, magentas. We're not muted. He and I were very flamboyant, as you probably know.
Yes. Oh, that's
We're
so
very
exciting.
flamboyant. Yes, we're flamboyant people. So, yeah, that's what we're going to do.
So will you keep us apprised?
Oh, yeah, we'll
Very
keep you
good.
surprised. But we just want to make something totally different. We're not going to do anything traditional.
That's
We're going
fabulous.
to break the boundaries of tradition yet again.
Well, that's very true because a lot of times when you go for a deck of oracle cards, it's like there's this deck and this deck and this deck and
There's
this
so
and that.
many.
And there are so many, and they're all alike.
Mm-hmm.
And it's time. It's time for somebody to go to another level.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of the 38.
Yeah, it's more artistic, and we want to make them big.
Yeah, I really like that.
Bigger ones.
Yeah.
I find will be nicer. I mean, I have so many. People come into my where I work, and there's I have 30 decks or more.
Oh, do you
and-
sell oracle decks?
No, I don't sell them. It's just for the
They're
people who
there.
come in, and it's just after a while, I get bored looking at
Yeah.
the same ones. I can't
That's very
stand
true.
it anymore.
You get bored.
And one thing I wanted to point out to people is that every single person who comes to see me is a different vibration. It's never the same. And some people, frankly, are much more interesting than others. There's no two ways to say it.
They are.
Not everyone's the same. And I tried to describe it, or I took some notes. I was trying to put some things together that people may not understand at first. When you're dealing with the energy and vibrations of people, it's sort of like there's different depths. And it was funny. I don't know if I mentioned this the last time I was here, but my dog Ghost has been sitting on my lap during the readings sometimes. I don't know if I told you this last time.
Well, you did tell me that she sits in
She
your lap.
and there are some people that are sitting across from me, and she's been known to. Now you know that you may not be the most exciting person if a dog falls asleep on a person's lap and bumps her head on the table during your reading.
If
And then I'm
Ghost
sitting
falls
there
asleep.
trying to be like, oh, she's just very relaxed. No, maybe she's bored.
Oh, that's too cute.
She actually did. She should. So I tried to describe, and I think this is something that, even though it's not the most juiciest of gossip, I tried to describe this because people often are wondering about it. This is the physical plane, and we all know it.
Yes.
We
That's
do
what
know
we. That's
that,
what
right?
we. Yeah.
Physical plane, this is here. This is the reality, solid. Humans are boxed into this reality. Well, most of us anyway, right?
Yeah.
Most of us. Beyond is the subtle reality that I think the more psychic or the awakened are part of. Animals and children are much more aware of it too. The subtle reality. Like, how an animal can sense what's going on?
Oh,
Sometimes
always,
children
yeah.
could, like they know when their dead relatives are walking around, or, oh, I just saw grandma, and grandma's dead.
Do you how often do you think children are tuned into that reality?
They
That's
used to be
subtle.
more. They used to be more before they got, before they got all, completely indicted with technology. I think technology took a lot of that stuff away,
I'm sorry.
don't you think?
I don't know
Sort of.
because I haven't been around children that much.
I think children
lately.
are not as aware of the subtle reality as they used to be. Animals are because they're not doing technology, as far as we know.
That's a huge subject with me because of my age.
Yeah,
And I see people with children, and every summer at the Mowers
Yeah,
Meadow,
yeah.
and you sit there and you watch these people coming and going with these little kids, and their parents are not connected with them at all.
No, they're not. No, they're not. And how about children? I've seen kids on skateboards, even teenagers. They have a phone in front of them.
There's something. Well,
While
the
they're on
wiring
it.
is different now.
The wiring is totally different. Now, the ether reality is the veil between the worlds, is a membrane that divides the two worlds. So when people talk like around Halloween, when the veils are between the worlds are thinner, you could see the spirits more. I don't quite know why or how, but it has something to do, I guess, with the moon.
I don't know.
I should know. Maybe I used to know, but I've forgotten. There's a shift from one energy level to another. For example, I just thought of this morning. Consider the ocean. It's possible to dive into the ocean and be completely surrounded by water instead of air. The deeper you wish to dive, the more careful you have to be. That's what a reading is to me. I'm in this reality, but when I do a reading with someone, I'm diving into another
reality.
There are certain people that it's a bigger dive. I'm going deeper away. I feel my body sinking.
Is it a bigger dive because you have to go further, or is it a bigger dive because they are further? I mean, what?
It depends on the problem with the person.
Ah, okay.
If a person is very, for one thing, if a person is resilient or doesn't believe in the supernatural or what I'm doing at all, for one thing, you shouldn't come. Secondly, you're not going to get a good reading. You're blocked. If you're open to it, that's fine. Obviously, you're open, you're there. But if you have so much hurt or woundedness around you, there's more healing that needs to be done, and you as a healer would know. We're taking more of a risk by going in. So I find myself in those positions when I'm doing a session with a person. It's more of a deeper, like I don't even remember. I really don't remember those sessions. I could be with a person for an hour or 2 hours, and I don't remember what I'm saying to them.
Because you've gone so far.
I'm gone. Sometimes I get physical symptoms from it, whether it's headaches or stomach issues or whatever, but I don't really remember what I say. Other people, it's very almost like sitting down with a friend and talking, and it's very easy. So it depends on how deep the situation is. When you're connecting with spirits who have passed, they're not that far away. People tend to think that they're very far in a very far away realm. They're really just here.
They're here.
They're really just here.
But the issue that the person is dealing with determines how deep you have to go. So it depends upon the trauma.
Mm-hmm. And also the trauma of the spirit that passed. There are people who have passed that have not moved on from a situation, whether they've been angry in life, they're angry in death. They're not all of a sudden awakened or enlightened. And they're like, no, I'm not going to come through. Like I think I told you last time, I had these people, these really staunch Catholics who wouldn't come through in a reading. Because
that's interesting.
Yeah, they're like, I want to talk to my mother, and she's not coming through. And I'm like, was your mother super religious? Yeah. I'm like, that's why she's not coming through. She doesn't want to come through to a psychic. Who, by the way, I went to Catholic school, and I'm like, I'm not a practicing Catholic, but I'm not Satan.
That's very true. People who want to put up barriers will say, well, I'm Catholic and it's against my religion. And when you get down nitty gritty, Catholics do everything.
They do everything.
I mean,
They're the ones that are calling the exorcists, by the way.
Yeah. And leave it to those priests to do that. That's tough to believe.
Yes, exactly. Oh, how many times have I've been asked, and this is a whole nother thing, and I really shouldn't laugh. People ask me, can you exorcise a demon from my child? No, I'm not going to do
Right.
it.
That's for the Catholic
That's,
priest.
call it, go to the church in Rome, please.
Yeah.
Can you imagine me doing that with my little exorcist bag and my hat?
Well, I
The
think if you
tuba bells
wanted to,
playing?
but why
I
would
guess
you
I could.
want to?
I don't want to do it.
Right. You don't want to do that.
I just want to, anyway, I know I'm laughing at this stuff and I shouldn't, it's been so outrageous through the years. I think I can laugh at it because I've been doing this for over 30 years now.
Well, you can laugh at it because you're living with it and you're comfortable with it.
I'm not afraid of anything on the other side. I really am not. There's nothing out there that can scare me. Human beings scare me.
Yeah.
Living humans, not spirits. I think Hollywood and the media has portrayed spirits and ghosts as something that is scary. They're not scary. They can't hurt you. They can't do anything to you. If they try to frighten you at all, it's just so they can get noticed. They can't do anything. They have no corporeal body. They can't do anything.
Right. So they should.
They're harmless. Just talk to them out loud. Just talk to spirits out loud. Acknowledge them. They just want to be noticed.
That's interesting.
No, people are so afraid of them, and there's nothing. I think one of the nicest letters I ever got was I was on a TV show in Australia once, and I got a letter from this group of people in Australia that said, "Thank you for making us not afraid of the dark."
Oh, that's interesting.
It's like, I was like, I made the whole country of Australia not afraid of the dark. Good work.
That's a big country.
It was a big country. They have a lot of guns over there. It wasn't so nice.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's a large, very large
It's
country.
a large country. It's a lot of death going on over there. So anyway, yeah, so then I said, the subtle body can feel the difference, the changes in vibrations. The astral plane is the least dense and the realm of dreams. We all dream. Every night, even if people always say, I don't remember my dreams, you're still dreaming. You
Well,
remember your dreams,
I
don't
think
you?
for me, sleep is such a fascinating thing that not many people even understand. I feel like a lot of
Right.
what goes on in the day is organized at night. It's like, all this craziness that goes on, it's kind of like made sense of in some way while you're asleep. I don't know. Maybe that's
it
wrong.
does. No, it's your subconscious is fixing things out, but there's also, and this sounds a little scary, but it's not, various entities live in the astral plane. Whether they're angels, whether they're spirits, whether there's just all kinds of entities, they're there to help you, really.
Yes.
And there's nothing, once again, to be afraid of. The astral plane also contains the Akashic records. That's a library of all wisdom and experience. You've heard of the Akashic records.
I was trained to read Akashic records. I didn't go into it. It's something that I think if you're going to read Akashic records, then everything else falls by the wayside, and that's all you do. And I was not ready to do that.
There's something confusing about that to me, because does that mean that everything is destined? Is that if the Akashic Records is a library of everything that's ever happened, does that mean that everything is totally destined?
I think that's your history,
History, yeah.
which doesn't tell me that it's destined. It does tell me that it happened.
I think you have free will to a point. So the astral body is the least dense portion of the subtle body, and when the corporeal body dies, it releases the etheric body, which is, of course, perhaps how ghosts are made. That makes sense.
That's something I never thought about,
I
how
thought
ghosts
about that
are
this
made.
morning. This
How are
morning.
ghosts made?
When the corporeal body is gone, the etheric body is released, and they could either go on, or they hang here, or they come back and help us, or they come back when we think about them. They're just energy. They're energy that's left behind.
That's very interesting.
That came to me this morning in the kitchen.
I think that's real.
And I think it's real. When you go to this sounds extremely morbid, but when you go to a wake, and sometimes it looks like they're breathing, that's 3 days after the death. It looks like, I think that's the etheric body leaving the physical body, and then they're gone. And that's what hangs around. That's why it takes 3 days in some religions before you have to bury them. I don't think they even know why they have to wait to bury. I think that even religions don't know anymore why they have the rules they do. Like, does a priest know when he rings the bell that they're calling angels?
That is an interesting thing. I've been reading about angels for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And some Catholic priest has written a bunch of books about the different levels of angels. And he wrote about the levels of angels, but then he didn't tell about any experience that he had that substantiated. There's archangels, and there's angels, and there's cherubs, and there's
all kinds.
Seraphim, and all these different things. He didn't. He may have convinced himself, but he didn't convince me.
There's a chapter in my book about an angel. I had an angel experience that was overwhelming, and I didn't actually see it, but other people did behind me. It was a seraphim, and I know it sounds so flaky when I'm describing it now, because weirdly enough, for what I do, I'm kind of realistic. I can't even believe I'm saying these words, because what I do is so odd. But even reading that chapter to me feels like, whoa, that happened. Yes, it happened to me. But I had an experience with a seraphim angel that was behind me when I was doing some group channeling. And other people saw it. And I had no idea this thing was behind me. And it was huge.
The seraphim was huge.
It was like 6 or 7 feet tall. Other people saw it, and it's in my book. It's in my book.
Well, now, can you talk about that some more?
I don't remember. It happened back in I guess it was the late 80s in England. It was a night of a hurricane. A hurricane hit London when I was there. It was so bizarre. And I was doing some channeling at, it was even weirder because I was at the house of Donovan, the folk singer, Sunshine Superman. I was friendly with his family. And I was doing a group channeling for a small group of people. And a hurricane was happening that night. The first one to hit hit England in over 600 years.
Wow.
And the sky was red, and the winds were blowing, and it was really, really crazy. And as I was doing this channeling, which is a group reading, I don't do channeling anymore. I think that was one of the last times I did it. People were like looking behind me and said, do you know hello? Like that happened there too. Yeah.
That's delightful. As long as we're talking, move your book a little this way.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So anyway,
Not in
yeah.
front of your face.
Apparently, no, but the light went out. So apparently,
Fiona, not in front of your face.
not in front. So they said that, I can't really see where there's a good place. That apparently there was something standing behind me that had it was very tall and had wings with it looked like peacock eyes on it. Like eyes.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And it didn't say a word, but it was there. And at least 4 or 5 people saw it. And so I wrote about it. But I turned and knew something was there, but I didn't look up at it.
When you give a reading and you realize that something like that is happening, do you ever, after the reading, try to connect with these beings?
No. No.
Right, it just goes on.
No, I just let it go. There was one time I had a woman that was very, very, she was a very conventional, conservative woman from Kingston come, and apparently she worked in the court system in Kingston. And when she walked in, I thought, well, she's going to be a real straight-laced person. I was thinking, why is she even here? She seemed very, buttoned down.
Yeah.
And she sat there for the reading. She sat in my little place, and the whole room started going like this.
Really?
And I'm like, I'm not going to mention that. I'm just going to go like normal and try to maintain that this is perfectly. And at the end, she said to me, "Did you notice that the room was spinning?" I was like, "Yes." She said, "I want you to know that I saw it too." And then she got her little bag and she left. And I sat there and I thought, well, should we have mentioned it during it? We didn't. But that happens a lot when stuff happens and we just kind of like let it go. And it's different. That's a person I would never have thought that would even have occurred with.
So when you give a reading to someone and something happens, like the environment changes, you have other beings come around. Well, I think other beings come around a lot.
Yeah.
You don't really talk about them. You just
if animals come in, I do. There's animals that run through, dogs, cats, sometimes fish. I've had fish come. I have pet fish. Every animal, every pet, everybody wants to come back. No matter what it is. It's not just dogs and cats. I've had a person that's like, yeah, I used to have a goldfish years ago. Like,
there he is.
Like, I see this animal. Maybe, I think it's because I love animals so much, and then they know that they can come. Everybody wants to know I'm here. And then the people, yeah, people, babies, born, unborn.
Have you ever said something like, well, your Uncle Fred is here, but the person wasn't interested in Uncle Fred?
Oh, yeah, sometimes people hate them. Yeah,
and so they don't acknowledge Uncle Fred. What do you do?
Well, I said I had a girl a few years ago when I still had the old store that there was a man that came. Oh my God, it was so bad. The whole room got really, really cold. And I said, "George is here," and he says that he's sorry. And the girl started crying and crying and crying. And I said, she's like, "Get him out, get him out, get him out." I said, "George is sorry that he killed your dog." And the way it came out was like, it like shot out of my mouth. Apparently this was a neighbor when she was a little girl. She was a little girl, and this must have happened 20 years before.
Wow.
And this man, 20 years later, said that he was sorry that he poisoned her dog when she was a little girl. And this girl was screaming in the room. She says, "Get him out, get him out." I said, You don't have to forgive him. Don't forgive him.
Good for you.
Don't forgive him. Don't forgive this man. Just because he wants forgiveness, it's me. You have to give him forgiveness.
Right.
And I told him, "Get out of here."
Did he go?
Yeah.
So
I'm not one for, he needs forgiveness. No, he's a dog killer. Get him out. So that was like profound to the point that I wrote it when I was going to write George the Dog Killer in the second book. I have a whole chapter.
Oh, I think that's an
like
extremely important chapter.
It's important because I don't want people, I know there are people out there who will be like, well, you have to forgive.
No, you don't.
I'm not one of them. I think if a person does something like that, forgiveness comes it's too easy to forgive in some cases and just say, well, they didn't mean it. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. He knew what he was doing. So people think that they can get redemption for anything. Oh, I killed this, but it's okay. They'll forgive me eventually. No, they don't have to. I wouldn't forgive him.
I think that is a totally profound thing that you have said, because in our culture, people feel like if somebody says to you, "I'm sorry," you are supposed to forgive them.
I wouldn't.
And I was out at Haynes Falls. There's a group out there run by the Saracumatos or something, a wonderful retreat center, and they gave a weekend retreat on forgiveness. And everybody was talking about forgiveness. And one of my friends stood up and said, "No, you do not have to forgive. If somebody rapes you, you do not have to forgive."
Exactly. You don't have to be a victim.
Right.
You don't have to.
And if
I
you
agree.
don't forgive, then you're standing up and saying what you did was wrong, and I'm not going to play into it.
They have to be accountable to it karmically, and that's what it is. This man cannot be forgiven and be there's a religious word for it, like, there's a pet, like, it starts with an A, I think. Absconded? No. There's a word, like, he can't be forgiven. Well, forgiven's a simple word, not the word I was going to use, for what he did. He has to have responsibility, I think.
Yes, take responsibility.
Yes,
Absolved.
thank you.
That's
I
a
was thinking
Catholic
of
term.
absconded. What was I
Absolved.
calling?
Have to be
Yeah,
absolved of
absolved.
his. Yeah,
Exactly. I don't go with that. And people might think I'm wrong, but I'm going to hold true to that. I would not forgive this guy. And this girl was still so upset. When you think of the timing, this is like 20 years later. This wasn't a 7-year-old girl anymore. This was a 27-year-old girl who was sobbing and screaming because of this man. She carried that with her all these years. And this man, dead, comes in to her
Yeah.
meeting and is trying to ask forgiveness.
Woe
She
is
doesn't have to
me.
do it.
Yeah, slap me on the
You know?
wrist. Yeah.
So, and enough happens in life that we are supposed to forgive everyone for doing terrible things. And I'm
Mhm.
not. So that was to me a very interesting thing that happens. There are some stories that just stand out, and there are others that, so that was one that's just,
Well, do you have people that come to you regularly?
oh my God, yes. Every 3 weeks, every 6 weeks.
Is that too often?
I think that they should at least wait every 3 months. 3 months, sooner than 3 months doesn't make sense. You gotta let things happen. And there are some people I have to tell, please don't come as much as you do. There's a couple of girls, young women that are going through a divorce who want to come like every 10 days. And I'm like, you can't. You're not allowing things to happen. And I have to be careful not to, have it. They even use sometimes different names to try to get in.
to try to get in. Yeah, try to get.
It's
Well,
funny.
that happens with
It's
tarot
funny.
readers too. People want to get their tarot read every week, or they want to get their tarot read every day. There was one summer when I was invited every week out to up in Tannersville in that area to a resort, and in reality, the owner of the resort was not bringing them in to entertain the residents. She was bringing them in because she wanted
Yeah.
this reading. And
you
after a
can't
while,
do
it was
that.
like, look, this is coming too fast.
Yeah.
And
You have
I
to let
said, I'm
things
not coming
happen.
back.
No, you have to let things happen. It's been one thing. If I had a complaint about any of this, it has made me feel like I'm carrying a huge responsibility. A huge responsibility. Like, I know tomorrow I have to see a young man that is suicidal. The first day of the new year, sure enough.
There he's showing up.
There he is. And I just have to make sure that what comes through is helpful.
That's very true.
It's a lot of
You just
responsibility.
have raised a huge, this is the parrot in the room, the 500 parrot in the room. And that is what is as a reader or as the psychic, you can't just sit around and if you're going to do something and if it's going to have value, you can't just report it. Because a lot of it has to do with the words that you use, the posture that you use, your attitude. You can. There's a lot of ways you can deal with depression and suicide.
It's tough because also when you're doing anything, and this is not a usual everyday person's problem in their workplace. When you're channeling people that have passed, they don't often say the right words. Nowadays, we have to be very careful about the words that we use.
Yeah.
Or else we'll be canceled. Spirits don't talk like we do now. They have a different kind of lingo. And sometimes things come out, or words are said, or off-color jokes, and sometimes things come out in a weird way. And I'm sitting there going, you know, it doesn't happen often, but, you know.
It's
there's-
there. It's an
there.
element.
Things are said a different way, and I can't interpret it the correct way sometimes.
Well, that has to do
It's weird.
with the 50 years ago. It has to do with 100 years ago.
It
Has to do with 10 years ago.
has to deal with people's dead old grandfathers coming
Yeah.
through and joking.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there as a receiver. And I mean, this sounds so, for normal people listening to this, they'll be like, what is she talking about?
Oh, no, I get it right away.
But this is not, there's nothing normal about this. And I'm often saying, oh, I just can't believe I just heard that. And they're like, well, that's what he would say. And I'm reporting back something that I'd be like, oh God, if anybody, you know, I'd have the cancel police after me just right now. But it's weird. And sometimes, you know, I wake up and I just don't want to do it. I just don't want to talk to people. But I don't do anything else. This has been what I've been doing my whole life. There's been nothing else. This is it. And
It's not boring.
it's never been boring, that's for sure. So now we're going into the oracle card line and everything else, and we're going to try to, you know.
Well, but now you have, as a path of a psychic, you have been personal.
I've been personal. You mean only doing it personal?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I don't do anything on phone.
And so that's one way you have defined your path.
Only personal.
And I think you have also defined your path by dealing with a person's inner issues. So you're not talking to somebody about a government. You're not talking to somebody
I've
about
gotten
town hall.
God,
You know, no, you're talking
Yeah.
about people
Yeah.
and their souls,
Yeah.
which is a very, very intimate way to make a living.
it's all like people always say to me, I'm better than a therapist. I'm like a marriage counselor, therapist, doctor too, which is so funny because what am I doing? I'm like, oh, you go get your thing checked. I'm like, what am I talking about? But yet I know. But you know that too.
Well, if you tell them that they need to do something.
And they do it, and they're like, yeah. But it's so crazy because my brain feels like it's split into 10 different things because I really don't know what I'm talking about, and yet I do.
You're the
Famous last
microphone.
words
You are the
on the
microphone.
radio.
Mm-hmm.
I'm picking and receiving.
Yeah,
I'm receiving messages.
yeah.
That's what I do. I'm a receiver.
So do you ever work in the future?
Yeah, a lot.
How far in the future do you go?
Past, present, future, all happening at once. It's quantum
I know
physics.
you told me that,
Yeah.
but when you work with the
Um,
past, present, and the future, how far do you
problem
go?
with the future is sometimes like I'll see something that looks like spring or Easter, and I take it that it's this spring or Easter because that's, to me, it would seem like it's this one. But sometimes it turns out I'll get a call going, remember what you said was last April? Well, turns out it was this April. The next April I got married. So to me, I could be as much as like a year off or 2 years off or something like that, which I don't know if that's that helpful, but sometimes it is. I'm always assuming that it's the next spring.
Well, do you have like a number that you work with?
No.
In other words,
Not at all.
could you possibly be off by 2 or off by 1?
No numbers.
No numbers.
Although there was a year, this is funny, a few years ago, about 8 years ago, when I had the old store, somebody came to me and asked me about the Kentucky Derby. Damn it, that horse won. It was the most, and you know, I didn't do it for like any statistics. I looked at the names and picked the name I liked, and it turned out it was the lowest. This horse was no way going to win. That's a horse that won, and so pretty soon the next year, and that woman won a few $1,000s on that horse. The next year, all these people were coming into the White Griffin asking me to choose their horses. I did. And they won. And I won. The next year, forget it. I wasn't going to do the horses anymore. Plus, I felt sorry for the horses.
Right.
Racing. Never again. How did that happen? You know, it had nothing to do with statistics or numbers. It had to do with the names and the vibrations from the names. I didn't want to even look at the statistics. I felt bad for all the horses.
Well, that did not have necessarily. Can you say that had to do with them or not? When you were doing this
It
reading,
had nothing to do with them.
right? It had to do with the horses. So you weren't doing that anymore.
No, I didn't want to do it for them.
Have you ever had a person come into you and ask for a reading and you tell them you're not going to give it to them?
Oh yeah, a lot. Oh yeah. If I don't like their vibe, their energy, I'm like no. And then they argue, and then I have to throw them out. The fact that they argue is a reason. You must leave.
Yeah.
Or I start it, and they're just so negative that they have to go. They're so awful. Yeah. I don't like them. And some of them, they look like killers.
Well,
I've had mobsters come in. I have. Yeah. I used to have a lot of Staten Island mobsters. I used to do readings in Jersey for mobsters.
well,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, they want their questions asked too.
They need it too. And some of them were very respectful. They took off their hats and bowed.
Well, hey,
Bowed
you
to
know,
me.
they wanted the reading.
Yeah, it's like the Sopranos coming in. Yeah, I had that. Had that.
Do you deal with trends?
Trans people?
No, trends.
Oh, trends.
You know, a trend.
A
something,
trend. Oh, I
fashion.
thought you meant trans. Oh, I
fashion.
love trends. Trends? Trends?
Yeah.
Oh, trends like things that are happening?
Yeah, they're moving in a direction. What is it? I
Like
guess what I'm
trends.
asking
Yeah,
is,
trends.
where the
Like
hell
what's
are we
coming
going?
next? Actually, where we are going is trans. Everyone's everything. There's no male, woman. There's nothing. We're all everything.
What do
now.
you think about that?
I think that they are returning to their old spirits. They used to be, the women who want to be men who used to be men, the men who want to be women used to be women. They feel more comfortable in their old lives, in their old bodies. So all the lifetimes are accumulating into a mess. Not a mess, I shouldn't say mess, but it's confusing.
I think it's,
We can't be everything. What's this they thing? Theys feel like how many people are in them?
right.
mean,
That is
honestly.
true.
Honestly, are we? I just said to David today, I was like, I think I identify as a non-human. I'm going to just identify as a non-human. I don't feel human. Let me be a non-human British person, or British non-human. I'm a non-human British elemental.
I think truly that the trans thing, if people will just settle down, that it's very ordinary. And I think, like when because I'm 80, so you look back.
You're not. You're not. Every time you say that, I want to slap you. No, you're not.
Go back 60 years, go back 70 years, go back 75 years.
When you were 5.
And I'm sitting around and playing in kindergarten or something. And, the kids are saying, well, when I grow up, I'm going to be. And when I grow up, I'm going to be. There was no choice.
No.
There was no choice. And I had friends who did not want to grow up and be boys, or they did not want to grow up and be girls, and they did not want to. I don't want to grow up and be a girl. I also had friends who, when they played, they would be, you be the daddy and I'll be the mommy. And then, the daddy was always a girl. Well, I want to be the daddy, So they were doing trans then. We just didn't have the science.
We didn't have the science. Yeah.
It couldn't. So now we've got the science. If everybody will just calm down, it's going to be fine.
Well, I think the soul could be anything. It's
Right.
all about the soul. The soul is what matters. This body is going to go, and we'll all be souls. It
It's
doesn't matter.
all transgender. Everything is. And when you talk about angels,
They're neither male nor female.
They are whatever,
So we're all pretty much angels, really.
you know.
Well, yeah.
So I don't know,
It
to
don't
me,
matter. We're all of it.
but what kind of a road are we on? What is the path?
As
Here
I
we
said, I'm a non-human elemental.
You know, here we are.
I refuse to be human at this point. So that's pretty much the path I'm on. I
Here
can't-
we are.
I don't identify with the human race. That's what the path. I feel like I
Is
have
that
to
a new
move my-
identification, or is that
No,
something?
I've always had it.
You've always had that
I
identification.
feel like I'm observing and I'm not part of it. All this stuff that's going on, I don't feel part of it. I never have.
Well, to
Which
me,
is weird. And you're very much into human and charity and helping people and all that. I've always been observing because I feel like I can't go there.
well, you can't do
be
your
part of it.
job
I'm
and
not here.
be in the
I'm
middle
not
of it.
here. I'm not here. I'm
Right.
not
So
part of
so
it.
you are not, and that's
Nope.
the way. That is your ticket to success. If you stuck your toe in
Oh,
the
I can't.
pond,
I
man,
can't.
it would
I don't
all be
go with
over.
People don't. I was
Right.
gonna say they don't take to me.
Right. Well,
they don't. They
you
don't.
know.
They don't know. They think
So
I'm
it's
weird.
okay. It's
I'm-
okay because you haven't. But what about the rest of the crowd? What
There we
about
go.
the John?
That was a big one. I like the lighting though. Look at that.
What about the John Does? What about where are we all going? You don't want to answer.
Well, for one thing, humans got to fix up the planet because they've wrecked it,
Right.
and
Yep.
as long as they wreck it, they don't deserve it. So
Right.
bye.
Right.
Sorry.
I completely.
So you wonder
100%
why everyone's
concur.
dying of COVID and every other disease is going to not go away because we had our chance and we lost.
I agree.
So there we go.
I completely.
Wrecked the ocean,
Totally
wrecked the air,
agree.
wrecked everything. So you don't play with your toys nicely and you break them, and you don't deserve them.
Right. I agree.
Everything gets taken away, and nature has to come back. But that's
I'm-
all that matters.
I think that when push comes to shove and it all explodes and however it explodes, that the planet, if it isn't blown up, will survive.
Yeah, the
It
planet
won't
will
survive
survive.
as we know it, but it will survive.
The planet will be here.
Yeah.
The animals will come back if humans go.
Hmm.
Humans have got to go, and
That's
I'm
it.
sorry. I'm not sorry.
I agree.
I knew from the time I was a little girl that we're wrecking it, and
Yeah.
it's so much worse now.
Mhm.
And I could look at this is why the detachment, I have to look at the whole thing and say, well, you're wondering why this is happening? Don't you know?
Yeah.
Don't you know?
Haven't you
And
figured
it's-
that one out?
Haven't you figured out why is this happening? So, yeah, I have a weird perception of this, or different.
Well, I don't
I'm
think
not
it's weird, and
surprised.
I
I'm
don't
not
think it's
surprised.
different. I think it's the only thing that makes a sense
Look at
to
people
me.
eating. I mean, I knew when I was 5 not to eat. I mean, I know there are people eat meat, and you have every right to eat meat, and I'm not going to tell you what to eat, but I stopped eating anything with a face when I was 5 years old,
Right.
and I never have again.
Yeah.
And I don't get sick, and I have never ever questioned as to why I stopped. I couldn't eat anything with a face.
Did that drive your mother crazy?
My mother hated me for many reasons, and that was just another one. My
Well,
whole
it
family,
messed up. It
especially
messed
at
up the
that time.
kitchen.
Especially at that time when nobody was a vegetarian. That wasn't the thing then, you know, and I survived. And I don't regret it. I would never eat that. And I never have. Never. Ever.
That's fine.
And that's, you know, but people do. My son eats meat. I don't like it, but, you know, he's aware of what he's eating.
Well, does he get it at home or does he get it
No,
elsewhere?
he won't eat like pigs and stuff because he knows that they're so cool and smart. But other things he'll eat, but I can't even, I tell him what it is. I think that the knowledge is the power in that. But
Yeah.
somehow I knew that you just don't you don't eat that.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of that. And I'm healthy and still here.
But I think also that it isn't just the diet.
No.
It's also what we're wearing.
Yep.
It's also our modes of transportation.
Yep.
It's all the stuff. And I have a job, and it is with intent because I want to stay out in the world. And young people nowadays don't know about some of them do know about being vegetarian, but they really don't know about being vegetarian because of what they're eating. They don't
fast
know
food
what
and
they
all
are
that.
eating.
Fast food, nobody realizes it. I mean, it's funny too because there's such a cynical and fatalistic way. Even though I'm sitting here saying, yes, I think the world is going to end. My friend Jeffrey, who we spoke about, we were out today, we were sitting, and he said, I really love life. And I said, Jeffrey, I love life too. And even though we're sitting there thinking about like what could possibly happen, we're like, Happy New Year, we love life. And that's what counts.
It is.
And that's the perception, or we're trying to be positive in the midst of this chaos. And, if we all blow up, I always loved the people, the violin players on the Titanic when it was sinking. That was like what I aspire to at this time. Let's enjoy it. Happy New Year.
Yeah, January's coming. One more January is coming
This
around.
This is it. I mean, this is the New Year's Eve.
But really, when you're talking about food, I am around all these very young people in their 20s, and one of them came up to me the other day and she said, oh, blah, 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 you're so amazing and blah, 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 blah. And what are your rules? And I said, I have two. And I said, one is to keep moving, and the other one is to don't eat anything that you don't know what it is.
Exactly. Oh
And
my God,
it
it's
just
like
went
anything.
right by them.
Really?
So I went over to the kitchen and I just pulled out of the refrigerator something, and I said, "Look, see, here's the list of ingredients. How many words do you go by till you find one that you can't read it?"
Wow.
And she said, "Oh, look, it's on the third." I said, "Okay, you don't eat
That's
that."
Scary. Oh,
I mean,
wow.
it was like I had opened up,
Yeah, Pandora's box.
and
did.
it was like all of
You
a
did.
sudden,
Very amazing.
yeah. And here's a whole bunch of these young people that I'm working with, and they are clueless. They don't understand even what food is,
Wow. Oh, I do.
And I'm wondering what is the connection between not knowing what food is and being connected with your phone and your computer.
Absolutely. And what they're putting in their body in general. And I know the body is not the everlasting thing. It's
Right.
the other thing. But it's what we're walking around in now.
Does anyone ever come to you and talk about lifestyle, or ask questions about how they should raise their children or anything?
A lot. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, a lot.
What kind of
Yeah.
questions do they ask?
Mostly about what their children should eat and things.
Really?
And I try to steer people a lot into vegetariarism. Vegan.
But when you do that, do they understand what
they
you're
do.
saying?
They do, and I use myself as an example. I'm
Yeah.
trying to change this for a good way for as many people, but of course it's up to them. I don't like to push my way of like this is the way. I'm not like that, although I have very strong opinions.
Well, if you were to list a couple of 3 things or 5 things or 10 things or whatever, that would be guidelines for spiritual success.
Don't eat the dead. Don't be a graveyard. Don't eat dead animals. Don't carry that around. Eat live things. That's for one thing. When I do my spiritual work, I don't eat or drink at all before reading. Nothing. So if I know I have a person coming at 1 o'clock, I don't have breakfast. I don't eat until after the day is done. It's nothing. You know, I'm completely, I want to say pure, but no. I mean, I'm a fasting to a point. I'm completely open. I'm not going to say I don't have a glass of wine or something at the end of the day. That grounds me. I think a positive outlook to an extent, but also don't take yourself seriously. Laugh at yourself. Have a sense of humor about things. Don't walk around with a pompous attitude. I mean, I joke about stuff like that, but you have to laugh at the ridiculousness of things sometimes, because it's all very ridiculous in a sense.
You got 5 minutes. Let's see.
We only have 5 minutes.
Wow. Oh,
Okay.
And speaking of the ridiculousness of stuff,
Yes.
I wanted to show, because everybody loves her so much, this.
Oh, I know. She's the most adorable thing.
I told people that Ghost wasn't going to be joining us this evening,
And here she is.
but she is actually going to be joining us. That's my very ferocious pit bull.
You know, before you leave today and after the show, I would really like for us
Can you
to...
see her? It's not. Oh no. She's actually a rescue. Gotta get the full effect of the hat. She's a pit bull I rescued from a kill shelter in Tennessee. She's the sweetest dog in the world. That's my Ghost. She's always with me in my shop, and she really is the sweetest. Everybody in town loves her. I could walk down the street and everyone's like,
Everyone
"That's
knows-
Ghost.
everyone knows
That's
Ghost."
Even people I don't know loves her.
Well, can you tell people while we
She's my better
have just a
half.
couple of minutes left, while we're trying to bring up Ghost,
Yeah.
can you tell people how to get in touch with you?
Oh, my email is susanfionasaxman.com, and you can email me that way to make an appointment. Right now I'm booked until the end of February into March, but or else stop in my little shop, Fiona.
What about your book? How are people going to get your book?
The book is available on Amazon. Some shops in town have it, and also I have it in my shop. Locked in
And
Psychic.
now we're talking about the Oracle cards.
Not made yet.
But
they will be.
would somebody like to be on a list? You know, when I was doing my Healer's Handbook, the first one, I had an email list for a long time.
Well, we'll wait until we're
We'll
more
wait
prepared.
till longer.
Yeah.
Okay, because I think having an Oracle card list is just a really peachy keen thing. I would like to be
I
on.
think you're definitely on the list. You're going to be like the first one.
I
But
really would like to
that's
have
gonna
it.
be amazing.
So when do you have your readings for those who are
Usually
fortunate enough to
every
get on the list?
day between, except for Tuesdays, at 1 o'clock or perhaps 3 o'clock.
And that's it.
It's like every day.
Every
Yeah,
day.
every day. pretty
Except for
much.
Tuesday.
Except for Tuesday. I take Tuesdays off. So I'm usually in my shop. If you see the little orange sign up, that means I'm in session.
That you're there.
I'm
You're in session.
And they're over an hour long. So like tomorrow I have 2. Sunday I have 2. Monday I have 2. Then I'm off Tuesday, and then I have the rest of the week. I have people.
Okay.
So
You
I'm
know,
extremely busy,
um,
and I don't advertise, except
That's why
This way.
that's why I'm telling people
Yeah.
while we're here, because I think that's so important. And you know, people need to understand what you have just said, because what you're saying is the shop is open.
the shop is
And then
open.
when you do readings, you close the shop.
Yes.
The concept, that's okay, we got
Yeah.
another one right here.
The shop is open.
The concept of that is really something.
Yeah.
Because when you shut, it's like
I
not
shut.
gone for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like
Oh, no,
gone
I'm done.
For
I'm
an
done.
hour or two. Okay. Well, listen, if we still have a couple of minutes, I want to thank you so
Oh, you're welcome.
much for
You're
coming.
welcome.
I
It's
really
always
think
a
it's
pleasure.
Oh, listen,
It's always a pleasure.
this
I
is the
know
funnest thing.
we we can go on forever.
Well, you know, you've got some other YouTube things. When I search you out on YouTube with Thurman Greco, up comes this whole fabulous list.
I wish the Australia thing came up because that was my shining glory. That I don't think that's up.
You don't think the Australian ones come up?
No, the Australian one, that was like, I was live in front of like 2 million people, and that was like, I had the Alleluia choir playing because I said something that impressed them. And that was my shining thing, and I can't get a copy.
Well,
of
you
that.
have said something that impressed us here, I'll
Thank
tell you
you.
that.
Thank
And
you.
I am so excited that you're working on the
Yeah,
cards.
this is good. This
and I'm
guy's really
so
good.
excited that you're working on the book.
Jeffrey is really a cool guy, and he's
Okay,
he's lovely.
I think, well, listen, have you
Thank
told
you.
us it's over? Thank you, Ellen. Thank you
you.
very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Happy New Year,
Happy
everybody.
New Year. Happy New Year.